Welcome back to CareerCon. Thank you for joining us, and apologies for being a little bit behind, but with such great conversations going on, I think it's important that we just let our presenters go for it. And that's why I'm so excited to welcome you to this next session and introduce you to our guest, because Chris Gibbons is someone with a rap sheet that you will not believe. So I'm going to see if I can do him justice by introducing him, and bear with me because he has done so many amazing things and worked with so many incredible brands. So after discovering skateboarding and art as a teenager, Chris began a lifelong passion in graphic design, art and fashion. This passion influenced his decision to pursue a career in design upon completion of his VCE. Chris is enrolled and what was accepted into a Bachelor of Communication and Design course at the esteemed National School of Design at Swinburne University in Melbourne. During his tertiary education, Chris landed an industry placement with UK branding agency Blue Marlin and was asked to continue his employment with them post the completion of his design degree. However, Chris always knew that he wanted to pursue a career in fashion and graphic design, and through his industry contacts, Chris was offered a summer freelance gig that would change his life forever and his career trajectory in a dramatic way. Starting as a freelancer at Globe International and then later becoming an integral part of the product team for the Southern Hemisphere, this experience exposed Chris to the world of action sports, marketing, and what he now knows as streetwear fashion. Using this as his foray into the Australian fashion industry, Chris has continued to work for many Australian wholesale and retail businesses, often travelling internationally as part of his various roles. His past clients today have been AFL Women's, Vic Roads, Netflix, McDonald's, Australia, Ansell, Movember Foundation, the Dwindle Distribution, General Pants Group, Lee Denim, Diodora, I could go on. He has also been, and his most recent role before the one that he's in now, was as the Global Creative Director and Marketing and Ecom for Cotton On Group Australia. But these days, Chris is actually as the head of men's and youth fashion, head of menswear and youth at Santa Cruz Skateboards Australia. And whoa, was that a mouthful? But Chris, I just wanted to welcome you to the CareerCon stage. I'm so pumped for this chat.
Thanks, Kira. That's an amazing introduction. Thank you. I'm a bit shy, actually.
No, go for it.
That's amazing. Thank you. I think it's a pretty hefty introduction. I'm humbled.
Oh, no, you're welcome. And we're going to get straight into the questions because I know that we're going to cover quite a lot in this chat. But I guess, I've given the guys a bit of a broad range introduction about yourself, but can you just take us back to your time at high school and maybe just explain a little bit about what your passions were and why you kind of decided to get into where you were, go to school and further education, and then, onto your career?
Yeah, look, I suppose I was going through my notes last night actually and just did some bullet points. And look, a career like mine back when I was in high school, I didn't really know what it was. So it's a really sort of funny 360 moment today talking to students around Australia because, I was interested in graphics and things like that and art and stuff like that, but didn't really know what it was or you could actually do it as a job. All the speakers that came to high schools back in the late 90s, early noughties were footballers, etc. You didn't really hear from the guys, creating graphics on skateboards or, doing T-shirt graphics or, people working in the fashion industry. There's a bit of mystery around that whole industry for me. And I suppose, for high school, I'm going to be really honest now with the students. I wasn't the best student, to be honest. Probably lacked a bit of application. But that also is to do with, I think, maturity when you're a boy as well, when you're a male. And everyone finds their road at different times as well. But I had a couple of really good teachers. I went to a public school, didn't go to a private school. I had a couple of really good teachers that encouraged me and sort of saw probably a little bit of, I don't know if it was talent back then, but interest, and sort of, gave me a bit of, gave me a bit of a push along the way, which was good. And some of those teachers are still at those schools and stuff like that. So, yeah, that was really important, I think, and as you sort of go along, you sort of learn, what this thing is we actually do for a job. And I suppose after that, I sort of did TAFE. I did sort of I suppose it's a diploma in graphic art. And I was just going through my notes today and I thought, yeah, TAFE and higher ed, for me, it's really getting the tech skills, which gave me TAFE. And then really higher ed for me, going to design school like Swinburne, was they teach you how to think. So you've got those two, you sort of become this sort of, you've got this two-pronged attack. And TAFE was important for me as well because I sort of grew up in that time as well. Understood, worked out what I wanted to do, and then, went to Swinburne and then sort of went from there.
Oh, unreal. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but is that course, that design course that you've done at Swinburne, was that seen as a, really reputable course in the industry?
Yeah, look, it was. Long story short was after high school, I didn't get into the courses I wanted. So I went back, grew up a little, did all that stuff and then was later accepted. So I suppose the moral of the story is don't give up. Keep on trying, use the harass technique and just hassle and keep on going. Don't be put off by, a few failures along the way. And I ended up going to second year at Swinburne. So I skipped the first and then did industry-based learning, which is still part of what they do out there today. They're now based at Hawthorn. But the industry-based learning for me was sort of critical. Working in a UK agency, I learned so much from those guys. They allowed me to sort of, I was 21 at the time, and they allowed me to work on, clients like CUB and stuff like that, and big blue chip brands. So it's different to what I'm doing now, but it's still, really, I've still got some of those skills I use today. It's all those foundation years are really important later on in your career.
Yeah, I mean, that just leads perfectly into the question that we ask all of our speakers at CrewCon, and that's in regards to skills, because skill-based learning is so important, and even just being able to look at yourself and objectively saying, I'm actually good at that, and noting what you're actually good at, and working and navigating that. So in your industry, and I know we'll go into it a little bit later as to what actually you do, because I know that you studied graphic design, but in order to get into the graphic design industry, do you think that you need to have formal training, like further education training?
Oh, look, I was writing this down this morning. I think it's a combination of things. I think some people have a really good eye and a lot of it's intuitive, and you need to know the rules to break them, in a way. And that's where that, like, going back to that whole thing with TAFE was really good for me. I never used a Mac before in my life. I didn't know what Illustrator was or anything, and that gave me that technical basis, because at the end of the day, it's just that it's a tool, right? So it's you still got to have the ideas beforehand. It's just a tool. It's like all these digital platforms today. They're just tools for expressing an idea, essentially. So I think that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it does. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, expressing the idea is just such a perfect way to explain it, because I know that in an industry like yours and working with so many different brands that all of us will know about, can you actually unpack what your job title is and kind of explain to us what it is that you actually do? Like, maybe give us an example of a day in your life.
Yeah, okay. Currently with Santa Cruz, I suppose my role involves I manage menswear and youth categories for Santa Cruz, Australia and New Zealand, so sort of Southern Hemisphere. So we deliver 4 ranges a year. So obviously summer, spring, autumn, winter. In between that, we also have things called SMU ranges for our major retailers like City Beach. Everyone's probably heard of them. Surf Stitch, other things like that. My day-to-day is probably emails first thing in the morning. We work very closely with our suppliers. we're always designing the next range as well. So at the same time that that's happening, we're designing a year out. So we've already designed, summer for next year, for example. So looking at colours, fabrics, trends, all that sort of stuff globally. And also working very closely with internal teams as well. So like sales team, they give us the data back, what's worked, what hasn't. I think like we said the other day when we chatted, it's got a fun exterior of the brand, but underneath it's got a serious economic engine, which drives the whole business. And we don't just create, sell apparel. We sell hard goods as well. So everyone would know the skateboards, the wheels, the trucks, and all those other categories as well. So we sell all those things in Australia too. But yeah, like I suppose the day in the life is, is building new ranges, looking at upcoming trends, working with our parent company in the US very closely. They keep us in check about what we can and can't do with the brands, but they're very good. They understand that the Australian market's different. And for me, it's always good to see, what the guys are doing in the UK. Or the other day, we were having a look at what Argentina was doing for Santa Cruz, or even Japan. It's, the guys are doing some really interesting stuff with the brand. So it's very collaborative in terms of the day-to-day. And it's a very, very tight-knit team. It's not like a big organisation like where I used to work at Cotton On. It's a very tight, small team. Not hundreds of people, we're talking, 20s and 50s. So, and look, I think the thing is too, it's, as you get more senior, I think, there's a tendency to offload a lot of work, but I still am in the trenches doing a lot of the day-to-day as well. That's just me. I'm probably a bit of a control freak, but I think, it's important as well. And with a brand like Santa Cruz as well, it's iconic. It's been around since 1974. Everybody knows it. So if something is bad or something doesn't sell or looks terrible in the market, you definitely hear about it. So there's a lot of custodianship that goes with, working on a brand like Santa Cruz. Any of those brands like Vans or any of those international brands. Yeah.
I mean, just by looking at, where you've worked in the past, you have spent them, a good portion of your career to date at the Cotton On Group, where you worked before Santa Cruz. Can you kind of, I guess there are, lots of potential students wanting to get into your industry. And, I think that sometimes what you actually don't see looking from the outset, looking in, is that you can work for, a brand itself. Like Cotton On, you were kind of, working in the midst of an Australian brand. But then with Santa Cruz, you're kind of working within a brand, but you're sort of classified as a distributor, kind of managing the brand. Right. So how does it sort of differ?
Yeah, look, I suppose with Cotton On, it's on a much larger scale. We've got 1,500, we had 1,500 stores worldwide, 17 countries. So sitting in a creative director seat, it's a whole different beast. In terms of creative solutions, you've got to think about how things work in different countries. It's not just what works in Australia. It's like, is this going to work in the US? There's a whole set of different restrictions, circumstances, challenges with that. And I suppose the speed, I was writing some notes earlier, and it's probably the speed to market and the amount of content we generate. We were generating a Cotton On Group. It's probably a little bit slower at Santa Cruz. So just to do compare and contrast, we work out like a year out. We still do quick to market ranges, but because we haven't got our own retail stores, we're still predominantly a wholesaler and also selling online to that channel. Different sort of scale. And I suppose, it's just a totally different beast in a way. But I've taken a lot of the things I learned at Cotton On Group to Santa Cruz as well. One of the great processes they have there in terms of, doing stuff at a global level. It's a unique company in Australia. It's not many people have done what they've done. So it was a great learning experience for me.
Yeah. So with, being a creative director and working with a brand that has such history, like I think you're saying to me that it's one of the first, is it the first skating brand you know,
Yeah, I wish I could sort of share some of the brand, storytelling on this presentation, but that's for next time. But I think, look, it's the longest continually run skateboard brand in the world. So initially started in 1974 in Northern California. And look, they were sort of, internally we say at Santa Cruz, that's sort of the birth of the industry over there. That's where it all sort of started. A lot of the graphics sort of, created the look of skateboarding in the 80s and 90s, which is, everyone's tried to rip it off. It's, it's been, I won't go into it now, but, it's been copied and things like that over the years as well, and it's the best form of flattery. But it's been around for such a long time. And I think we spoke the other day, I think now it's going through another phase, especially in Australia, where it's, the kids that grew up with it, in the 80s and 90s, they've got kids now. So the kids are discovering the brand through their dads or, their uncles and stuff like that. And it's got that generational thing. Same with Vans and a few other brands have got.
Yeah, cool. I mean, I'm going to head into some of these questions, Chris, because they are unreal. and I think, we could sit there and literally talk about the brand history and stuff for so long, because you're right, it does have it resonates with so many different demographics, not even just in the space that you work in, which is men's and youth, but I mean, I have younger nephews and I know that they are all obsessed with the Santa Cruz brand. So like sort of as a creative director, I know that and do you call it the screaming hand? I know that the screaming hand is kind of synonymous with, Santa Cruz, but how do you, as a creative director, take a brand and then, evolve it? So then you are kind of, reaching new target markets, but still being really respective to the brand and the history and the heritage. Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, look, it's tricky. I wrote some notes about the screaming hand, which are relevant to our audience today too. I think, look, it was originally, it first sort of came about in 1985. So Jim Phillips, who did all the original artwork for Santa Cruz and created the dot logo, he created it in 1985. And it's funny, the first iterations of the screaming hand were sketched when he was in high school. So there's a connection back to our audience today.
Yeah, cool.
And originally when it was presented to the owners of the company, they actually didn't like it. So there's another little lesson in there for everyone as well. And, because imagine it's a screaming hand, it's been cut off. Everyone's like, what are you thinking? But that became, synonymous with the industry. Basically, everybody knows it. So yeah, I think in reference to your question about how do you sort of, keep it true to the brand and keep it relevant to the market, it's always tricky. We're always, we do a part of our collection which really pays homage to that section of the artwork, or it's, the old school part of the business, the brand. And then we've got our seasonal updates on things which are more relevant to the contemporary market, I suppose, and probably in line with a lot of our competitors in Australia. But we're always looking to evolve it and do new things with it. And they've been pretty good with us with what we can do with the brand as well. There's a bit of leeway there, but we also have parameters about how far we can take it as well, because they just want to protect it, because it's, it is the brand, basically.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I'm going to get into some of these questions, Chris. Now, the first one, I'm actually going to duck down a couple and address Mia's question, because she's asked, she goes, I'm really clueless. I'm sure you're not Mia, but I'm really clueless, but I do know that I want to get into graphic design. How would I actually get into something like that? She says that she would like to get into graphic design in design or fashion, but she wants to know how would she actually get into something like that?
Well, look, I think the first thing to do is to, put some sort of a folio together. I think, put a folio together, even though you don't have to study a course or anything yet, put some of your ideas down, sketches, drawings, anything. And, I'd try and get involved in a course. It can even be a short course, and then you can step into a more advanced course. So it's all little baby steps and just learning along the way. But I think, start putting your stuff into sort of some sort of format, or, storytelling of your work as well. It doesn't really require any training. And I think the lesson also is to bring your own perspective to things, have a point of view as well. Even when you're young, you can do that. It makes you stand out. So whether you're applying for a job or a fashion or design course, they'll look for that. Try not to be like everybody else. Hope that answers the question.
No, that's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I think a folio is a great step, even just to show your ideas and your train of thought and what you're thinking about and you're into. And it's kind of like an open door into someone's mind, really. So that's great tip. Great tip. So the next question that we've got is, what do you think the male customer is looking for right now versus the female customer?
Oh, good question. I knew there was a good one. It's a really funny moment in sort of streetwear fashion and the categories we work in. I think because of COVID as well, everything's very comfort driven as well. We sell a lot of fleece, a lot of things like that. What's a t-shirts? They're our core products. And it's really twists on those classics as well. Different washes, different techniques that work for us. And we also try to push it a little bit as well. So, in the Australian market, a lot of our great brands have gone overseas and, they're now influencing the UK market, where it used to be, buyers would go on trips to Europe and bring back ideas. Look, brands like Topshop and a few others are coming to Australia. We've got a great coastal lifestyle. We did pre-COVID. And, there's been some great brands that are very Australian as well. So, in terms of what the customer's looking for, it's always hard. You've got to try and, I suppose part of my job is trying to anticipate the market. And it's tricky, it's part sales, analytics, part, what worked last season, what's coming, what's relevant to our consumer. And with certain brands, you can't do certain things, it just won't work. You can try it season on season and the customers will vote with their feet. Like a certain color just does not work. So you're always looking for the next thing or the next category.
Yeah.
Oh, look, it depends. For us, a lot of our dark colors are working really well in the market.
Yeah.
So, we just need to try and do variations and build on that. So, other... Yeah.
I mean, just the question in regards to male and female, I think too there is such a resurgence on this whole kind of like androgynous kind of style where, like girls are reaching for their boyfriend t-shirts and, it's kind of like, so I think, in most of the cases, I know that even if I, when I was allowed to leave my house, when I would go shopping, and especially with my partner, would kind of be looking at the same things, so.
Yeah, that's right. And it's getting closer together as well. It's definitely merging. There's not really the thing of that's a female-centric colour. Or I think that's been the great thing about the last 10 years. I think it's merging and, the sort of rules are gone a little bit. There's not that sort of that's male, that's female. So it opens up to a whole different way of interpreting trends and colours and fabrics and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Well, this question isn't on the board, but I'm going to slot it in there because I'm really keen to know that to brands like yourself, so do you actually accept work experience, students or students that kind of want to, come into the back end and see how the industry works?
Yeah, look, we do. We had a really good sort of work experience program at Cotton On. We do a little bit here, but at my current role. But I suppose the thing is too, COVID's thrown up a whole heap of other challenges as well. But yeah, I think they're always, I think for every business and every brand, they always have an intern program or work experience. It's really important, I think, because, everybody started, not started at the bottom, but everyone was at that stage in their career at some point. You don't just go in as the brand manager or the creative director. Everyone's had to have that first initial step and gone, I'm looking for some work experience. Can I, do this for a few weeks or do that? So I think it's important. And look, a lot of brands are trying to do that and give back as well, because there's a lot of talented people around as well. So
yeah. Yeah, right. Well, I mean, our final question that we have here, which is a real goodie, it comes from Anonymous, but I think that it's a
Okay.
perfect way to kind of it's a perfect way to end our discussion, because he or she is saying that when should you start trying to get internships with companies as a student? Is my final year of my course too late?
No, I don't think it's too late. I think I'd sort of, yeah, I don't think it's ever too late. I would just make the first step and make contact with them. I think it's just be bold and have confidence, and send a few emails out. Send your folio, and a few will reply, some won't. But I think you just got to give it a crack, have a go. You'll be amazed. A lot of companies will get back to you as well. So you might get a few ignore letters, but I think most of the places will get back to you.
Yeah, right. So I'm welcome to share your email address with all the thousands of people that are on this call that are still asking.
Emails.
But on a serious note, though, Chris, we do have some really great questions that are still in the Q&A box that we just unfortunately can't get to. But is there a way that potentially some of these guys could reach out to you and ask some questions?
Yeah, look, for sure. I think I'm happy to answer questions
on
anytime.
LinkedIn,
yeah, on LinkedIn, on Insta, anything. I'll make my Instagram available and stuff like that, just for everyone to have a look at what I'm doing. I'm pretty new to Instagram myself, but I'm happy to share that with everybody. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, thank you so much. I feel like that, a lot of the questions that are coming through are, about, Cotton On and some of the brands that you've worked at in terms of, entry into those brands. So, any advice that you could give these guys would be awesome. And, I sincerely would love to thank you for joining us at CareerCon, because you are a silent assassin. You don't talk about everything that you do so much,
right.
but I'm sure that you've got lots of stuff to get back to. So thank you for your time, and enjoy the rest of the afternoon. Thank you for being on CareerCon.
I had one little thing I need to give some people with some advice. This is my little.
Great.
I was just writing this morning to go, what would I like to hear? And I think the thing is to, be confident, stay humble, and true to yourself as well, for all the kids out there. So ignore the naysayers. They're haters in 2020. So don't be afraid to take risks and have fun along the way. That's probably my best bit of advice I could give everybody out there today.
Oh, that's so good. Have fun. Have fun. Jeez.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Take some risks along the way. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Kira.
So much, Chris. No, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks.